The heavy doors of the High Council chamber shut behind them as Gunnar led the group through the winding halls of Alfheim's royal stronghold. The meeting had been a war of words, a battle fought not with swords, but with calculated maneuvers, cold facts, and undeniable truths. The elves had listened, begrudgingly, but they had listened. Now, as they entered the portal chamber, the air was thick with the tension that still lingered from their confrontation. Gunnar exhaled slowly, rolling the tension from his shoulders as he stepped toward the portal. He was done with politics. It was time to get back to work. Derren adjusted his dress blues, side-eyeing Gunnar with a smirk. Well, that was fun. Eli shot him a dry look. If that's your definition of fun, you need a better hobby. Aeliana, ever composed, stepped toward the portal, preparing to open the way back to Earth. Then, the portal flared, and before anyone could react, a figure stepped through. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Rose. She stormed into the chamber, boots hitting the polished floor with purpose, eyes blazing with a mix of fury and disbelief. You left me, she hissed, staring straight at Gunnar. Silence. Derren blinked. Then, oh, damn, he muttered under his breath. Rose's glare swung to him like a loaded weapon. Oh, don't even start. She turned back to Gunnar, stepping in closer. You walked past me, through the halls, had a whole conversation, and not one of you idiots thought to bring me? A beat of dead silence. Then, Derren burst out laughing. Oh, this is beautiful, he wheezed, bracing a hand on Eli's shoulder. I mean, really, the pack's fire mage, left behind like an unwanted side quest. Rose snapped her gaze to Aeliana, fury still crackling off of her. And you let them go? Aeliana, completely unbothered, simply lifted a brow. You were late. Rose's jaw dropped. Eli, still studying a floating holographic interface, finally chimed in. To be fair, you do have a habit of disappearing. Rose let out a sharp, frustrated exhale, dragging a hand down her face. You are all the worst. She turned back to Gunnar, who had yet to say a word. You forgot me. Gunnar folded his arms, staring her down. I didn't forget you. Then what do you call it? A long pause. Derren grinned. I call it hilarious. Gunnar shot him a side-eye that promised consequences. Rose groaned. You know what? Forget it. She turned toward the portal, rolling her shoulders. I'm here now. Let's just get this over with. As she stepped past Gunnar, she muttered low enough for only him to hear. Next time, try not to treat me like an afterthought. Gunnar said nothing. Didn't need to. The portal chamber in Alfheim was still humming with residual energy as the rest of the team stepped through, returning to Earth. Gunnar remained standing near the fading glow, his lone blue eye hard and unreadable. Aeliana was beside him, her expression softer but no less aware. She could see the tension in his posture, the weight pressing heavier than usual. But it wasn't just the council meeting that had him wound tight. It was the fact that he had forgotten Rose. And now, standing a few feet away, arms crossed and expressions seething with unamused sarcasm, was the woman herself. Rose. You forgot me, she said flatly, her amber eyes burning into him. A pause. Then, in a voice so quiet, so uncharacteristic, Gunnar muttered, Sorry. Rose blinked. Aeliana tilted her head slightly but wisely said nothing. No excuses, no gruff reasoning, no blame. Just sorry. Well, damn, Rose muttered, shifting her weight onto one hip. Didn't think you had that in you. Gunnar exhaled sharply, not quite a sigh, not quite annoyance, just acceptance. I don't make a habit of forgetting my people, he said. Rose smirked. Well, guess there's a first for everything. Aeliana cleared her throat, stepping forward slightly. We still have a mission to handle. Rose shifted, her frustration melting into business mode. Right, she said. The portal. With a flick of Aeliana's wrist, A separate rift shimmered into existence, silver-blue magic swirling in gentle arcs of power. This portal will lead you to a remote access point in Alfheim, Eliana explained. One that isn't tied to any permanent structure, meaning Draven's network won't recognize it as a standard threat. Rose studied the magic carefully, weighing the risks. And if he has traps set up. You'll know as soon as you try to force access, Eliana admitted. But if anyone can break through, it's you. Rose smirked. Damn right it is. Gunnar finally spoke up again. Find what you can. If it's compromised, you pull out. No risks. Rose gave him a knowing look. I don't take risks I can't handle. Gunnar didn't argue. Didn't need to. She turned toward the portal but hesitated, glancing back over her shoulder. So, you gonna forget me again? Or are we even now? Gunnar exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Get going before I change my mind. Rose grinned and stepped through. Eliana closed the portal behind her, the glow fading into nothingness. Gunnar rubbed a hand down his face, exhaustion creeping into the edges of his stance. That was the right call, Eliana murmured, watching him. He didn't respond immediately, just nodded, gaze still fixed on where the portal had been. A beat of silence. Then, let's go home. Together they stepped back toward the portal that would take them back to Earth. The air inside the cramped hideout was stale, thick with dust and the scent of old, untouched supplies. The small cavern was half natural, half dug out, hidden beneath a rock overhang deep in murk dust. Lyra sat on an overturned crate, hands wrapped around a canteen as she listened to the distant echo of movement outside. Patrols. Too many patrols. Argoz, pacing, muttered a string of curses under her breath. She was digging through an old stash, sorting through worn leather pouches, faded maps, and a few emergency rations she hadn't touched in years. This is bad, she finally said, voice tight. No kidding, Lyra muttered, taking another swig from her canteen. The Black Dawn wasn't letting up. If anything, they were tightening the net, sending more troopers than before. It wasn't just grunts anymore. Draven was serious. And that meant they were running out of options. The weight of the situation. Argoz slammed a pouch down onto the crate next to Lyra, looking at her, jaw tight. We can't keep this up, she admitted. I know these forests better than anyone, but they've got numbers and they're closing in. Lyra ran a hand through her hair, exhaling sharply. She hated this. The running, the hiding, the waiting for an opening that never came. She wasn't built for it. Argoz wasn't either. For all her talk about laying low, Argoz was a fighter in her own way. Always moving, always scheming. And now, she was running out of schemes. Argoz kicked the crate in frustration, scowling. If I knew this would happen, I'd have buried more stashes out west. But no, past me thought. Hey, no way Draven gets this bad. Lyra smirked. Yeah, past you was an idiot. Argoz shot her a glare. Thanks, so helpful. Lyra leaned forward, elbows on her knees. All right, Goblin. Then what do we do? A beat of silence. Argoz sighed, rubbing her face. We need to move out of this area, but we can't risk losing track of the pack. Lyra frowned. Even if they come back, how do we know they'll even look for us? Argoz hesitated. She didn't have an answer. A risky gamble. Lyra sat back, thinking. Then, we leave a sign. Argoz blinked. A sign? Lyra nodded, already working through the idea. Something at the old portal site. Something only they'll recognize. If they come back, they'll search there first, right? Argoz hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yeah, it's where they lost me. It's where they'd go first. Lyra grinned. Then we make sure they find something. What to leave behind? They both sat in silence for a moment, thinking. Then Argoz reached into her pocket, pulling something small and worn from within the folds of her coat. She turned it over in her fingers, then held it up. A small, worthless coin. Lyra's brow furrowed. What's that? Argoz gave a wry smirk. First thing I ever stole. She flipped it once, catching it. I've never lost it, never spent it. It's my lucky coin. Lyra arched a brow. And you're willing to part with it? Argoz hesitated. The first thing she ever stole, it had followed her through everything. Through murk dust, through Draven's rise, through the escape, the chase. And now? She flicked it into the air, caught it again. I trust Rose will know what it means. Lyra moved to the table, pulling out an old, worn map of murk dust that Argoz had hidden in a metal case beneath the supplies. She spread it out between them, eyes scanning for the best route. All right. Let's say we make it to the portal site. How do we do this without setting off every damn alarm in this wasteland? Argoz studied the map, fingers tracing old paths, forgotten escape routes. Most of them weren't safe anymore. She sighed. We can't take the main roads. We'll have to move through the underpaths. Old smuggler trails. But they're close to Draven's search zones. If they're tracking movement, we'll have to be ghosts. Lyra rolled her neck, cracking her knuckles. Ghosts I can do. What's the risk? Argoz hesitated, then tapped a section of the map. This is the only real bottleneck. If Draven's patrols are smart, they'll have scouts posted here. It's a perfect spot to get ambushed. Lyra's expression darkened. So we either risk the ambush, or we waste time backtracking. Argoz nodded. Pretty much. Contingency plan. What if it goes sideways? Lyra exhaled through her nose. All right. If we get spotted, we break right. These trees here look dense enough to lose them. Argoz nodded, then hesitated. And if we can't shake them? Lyra gave a sharp grin. Then we give them something else to chase. Argoz narrowed her eyes. Like what? Lyra reached into her pack, pulling out a small Black Dawn communication device. She tossed it between her hands. This thing can still broadcast on their short-range frequency. If we need a distraction, I can rig it to send out a false distress call a few miles from the portal site. Argoz smirked. Not bad, you've been hanging around Eli too much. Lyra scoffed. Please, I've always been this smart. The final plan. Argoz tapped the map again. All right. We move just before dawn. Patrols will be swapping out, less alert. We go quiet, plant the sign, and get the hell out before anyone notices. Lyra cracked her knuckles. Sounds like a plan. Argoz looked at her coin one last time, then clenched it in her fist. This better work. Lyra smirked. It will. Trust me. The night air was thick, heavy with the stench of damp earth and old magic. They were close, too close. Lyra crouched behind the rotting husk of a fallen tree, one hand gripping the hilt of her ice dagger, the other steadying the Black Dawn rifle at her side. Just ahead, the ruins of the old portal site loomed in the darkness. Argoz knelt beside her, barely visible in the shadows, her breathing controlled but tense. They had made it past the worst of the patrols, only having to silence 3 sloppy Black Dawn soldiers along the way. But now, standing before the remnants of where Echo Division had once entered this realm, the weight of what they were about to do settled hard in Lyra's chest. We do this fast, Argoz murmured. You carve, I cover. The site itself was nothing but a shattered stone foundation, cracks webbing through the scorched ground where the portal had once stood. Strange distortions in the air flickered around them, unstable rifts forming at random, warping the space just beyond the ruins. Even the Black Dawn gave this place a wide berth. That worked in their favour. Lyra moved first. She stepped up to a flat piece of rock and pulled a knife from her belt. With quick, practiced strokes, she carved the symbol, a mark she and Rose had used for years. Cleared, safe, waiting. It wasn't much, but Rose would know. Behind her, Argoz knelt, pressing the small worn coin into the dirt just beneath the carving. The little metal piece glinted faintly in the eerie light of the flickering rifts. It was done, but just as Lyra stepped back, her gut twisted. A sound, movement in the trees beyond the ruins. She turned sharply, raising the rifle. Shadows shifted beyond the perimeter. They weren't alone. A voice rang out from the dark. There! I see them. Lyra fired first. The energy blast lit up the ruins, slamming into the first Black Dawn trooper who had stepped too far forward. He went down, body convulsing from the paralysis, but more shapes surged toward them. Time to go, Goblin! Lyra hissed. Argoz was already moving. They bolted, weaving through the ruins as boots thundered behind them. The shouts grew louder, cutting through the thick air like knives. Then everything went to hell. A deep bone-shaking rumble echoed across the ruins, followed by a shrill, inhuman shriek. Lyra whipped her head around, just in time to see the rift open. It wasn't the same flickering distortion as before. This one tore open wide, a swirling vortex of darkness yawning into existence at the edge of the ruins. Something stepped through. Massive. Gnarled claws and twisted limbs. A face that didn't belong to any creature of this world. A night beast. The Black Dawn soldiers skidded to a halt, their weapons snapping up, confusion and horror freezing them in place. Lyra didn't hesitate. Move! She snarled, grabbing Argoz by the back of her cloak and yanking her forward. The beast let out a piercing shriek, its limbs lashing out, snaring the closest Black Dawn soldier and ripping him from the ground with terrifying ease. The screaming didn't last long. Lyra and Argoz didn't look back. They vanished into the darkness, letting the chaos consume the forces behind them. By the time they stopped running, breathless and unseen in the thickest part of the woods, the ruins were nothing but distant echoes of carnage. Lyra let out a breath, smirking. Well, that went better than expected. Argoz shot her a glare. Better? We almost got ripped apart. Lyra shrugged. Yeah, but we didn't. Argoz exhaled sharply, looking back toward where the old portal had stood. The message was left. The coin was placed. Now they just had to hope Rose and the pack found it. Rose sat hunched over the console, fingers flying across the keyboard, eyes bloodshot and burning. 36 hours. That's how long she had been at this, and she had nothing to show for it. She growled under her breath, stretching her neck as the screen flickered again, flashing another access denied message. God damn it! She had to be close. Draven's network was stronger, smarter than it had been the last time she had fought him in cyberspace. Layers of encryption, fail-safes, firewalls embedded with self-repairing runes. It wasn't just a digital fortress, it was magic-infused security. The bastard had learned, adapted. And now she was running out of options. She slammed her fist down on the table, exhaling sharply, trying to think. Every time she found an opening, something shifted, sealed up, like the system was learning her tactics. She had broken through twice only to be kicked out before she could map the network or find an active portal. Draven was one step ahead of her every single time, and that pissed her off. A sharp knock sounded at the door. She didn't bother looking up. If it's not coffee or a new brain, I don't care, she snapped. The door creaked open and a familiar voice dripped with sarcasm. Yeah, well, I was going to offer both, but now I think I'll just keep 'em to myself. Rose's head snapped up. Derren. He strolled in like he owned the place, carrying a fresh cup of coffee in one hand and an infuriatingly amused expression on his face. Rose sighed, rubbing her temples. I'm working. No, you're losing. He dropped into the chair across from her, setting the coffee down. Big difference. She glared at him but snatched the cup anyway, taking a long sip before slamming it back down. What do you want? Derren leaned back, arms crossed. Oh, I don't know. Maybe to check in on the rage-fueled fire mage who's been locked in here for nearly 2 days? Maybe to remind you that humans need sleep? I'll sleep when Draven's network is in flames. Derren snorted. Yeah? How's that going for you? Rose gritted her teeth. She didn't answer. Because they both knew the answer. Derren's smirk widened. That bad, huh? She huffed, leaning back in her chair, arms crossed. It's not just firewalls, Derren. The entire system is self-repairing. Every time I make progress, the damn thing fixes itself. He frowned, his usual teasing expression shifting to something more thoughtful. That's not normal. No shit. Derren drummed his fingers against the table. Sounds like magic. Rose exhaled sharply. Of course it's magic, but what kind? Derren shrugged. Dunno. You're the mage, not me. Rose rolled her eyes and turned back to the screen, glaring at the barriers standing between her and Draven's secrets. A soft beep echoed from the console. Rose's head snapped up. A weak link. A vulnerability. It was small. Almost insignificant. But it was there. Her pulse jumped. Gotcha, she muttered, fingers already moving. Derren arched a brow. That good or that bad? She didn't answer. She was in. A thread. Thin, frayed, but real. She followed it, digging deeper, pushing harder, bypassing failsafes. And then everything went black. The screen shut down. The power died. The room went dark. And then a voice, cold and sharp as a blade, whispered through the speakers. Nice try, apprentice, but you'll have to do better than that. Draven. A chill shot down Rose's spine. Derren tensed. Oh, that's not good. Rose sat frozen, hands clenched into fists. She had been caught. A chill shot down Rose's spine. Derren tensed beside her. Oh, that's not good. The line on the monitor had gone silent, too silent. Rose's fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitation flickering in her eyes for the first time in 36 hours. She had been caught. You still there, Draven? She asked, keeping her voice cool, unaffected. A few seconds of static, then his voice came through. Calm, controlled, a little too much so. Well, I was wondering when you'd slip up. Rose swallowed hard. Number? There was no way he traced her, not yet. Not this fast. Derren leaned forward, voice lower now. Rose, did he just... Draven's tone sharpened. You really thought I wouldn't notice? That you could dig into my system, poke around and just walk away? That you and your little lapdog there could taunt me without consequences? Lapdog? Derren scoffed. Oh, hell no. Rose's smirk returned, her fingers flying over the keys. She wasn't locked in with him. He was locked in with her. Draven's sweetheart, she drawled. I don't know what's more pathetic, the fact that it took you this long to notice, or the fact that you think you can stop me now. Another few keystrokes. His firewalls shifted, but she was faster. She was already into his comm grid. His alerts were already screaming. Derren grinned. Oof! Gotta admit, Dravey, this is embarrassing for you. A sharp growl cut through the speakers. I will skin you alive. Derren barked out a laugh. You wish you could, buddy. Rose's screen flashed red. Draven's countermeasures were moving. Oh no, he's trying, Rose teased. How cute. Derren leaned toward the mic. Hey, Dravey, real talk. Do you ever get tired of losing? Like physically exhausted? Or is it more of an emotional thing? Draven's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You think this is funny? Rose grinned. I think it's hilarious. The comms flared, then cut to static. Derren blinked. Did he just rage quit? Rose snorted. That or he's throwing things. Derren smirked. Call it a win? Rose leaned back, arms crossed. Oh, it's a win. But her fingers still hovered over the keys, because something about this felt off. Draven had taken the bait, but too easily. She exhaled, shaking off the feeling. Whatever it was, she'd deal with it later. For now, she just ruined his day, and that was more than enough. The comms flare back to life. Draven's voice is too calm now, too smug. You're enjoying this, aren't you, Rose? She rolls her eyes. Oh, immensely. Draven chuckles. Not angry anymore. Not rattled. Just amused. Tell me something. Why do you think I let you poke around? You really think I didn't notice you creeping through my systems? No. I wanted you to see what I left for you. I wanted you to come knocking. Rose's smirk flickers just slightly. Draven leans in, because now I get to tell you the truth. There's a faint sound through the feed. It's hard to tell what it is, but it's there. Derren's brows furrow. What is that? Draven sighs. Poor little Argoz. She really thought she could run forever. But we always find our own, don't we? The sound sharpens. A muffled voice. It's garbled, distorted, but... Rose freezes. It's Argoz. And she sounds terrified. You're full of shit! Rose snaps. But there's a sliver, just a sliver of uncertainty now. Draven chuckles. Am I? Argoz was taken days ago. She's already broken, Rose. And Lyra? He laughs softly. Let's just say, I'm sure she had her reasons for screaming the way she did. Rose's knuckles go white. Derren grimaces. Oh, that son of a... Draven's voice dips into something cold. You're going to break soon too, just like them. You don't even know it yet, but you're already losing. The moment the comms cut, Rose lunges forward, fingers flying across the interface. Oh, no you don't, you smug son of a... Crackle. Static. Error. The screen flashes red. The portal interface overloads in a violent burst of energy. Sparks spit from the console, the glyphs flaring one last time before everything goes dark. She slams her hands down on the console. Damn it! Derren, still standing off to the side, exhales slowly. His usual cocky smirk? Nowhere to be found. He runs a hand down his face. Welp, that was dramatic. Rose turns on him like a storm about to break. Not now. Derren holds up his hands. Hey, I'm just saying, if the goal was to get under your skin, mission accomplished. Rose's jaw tightens. He's lying. Derren nods. Yep. Rose's fingers curl into fists. He's bluffing. Derren shrugs. Probably. Rose's breath comes sharp and fast, her entire body coiled like a live wire. Derren watches her for a moment, then folds his arms. And what if he's not? That stops her cold. She glares at him, the fire in her eyes burning bright, but she doesn't answer. Because she doesn't know. Derren sighs. Listen, I get it. You want to rip his throat out through a comm line. Hell, I'd pay to see it. But right now, we got nothing. He pushed you out, he cut off the line, and we both know what that means. Rose grinds her teeth. He's got the last word. Derren nods. And I don't know about you, but that pisses me right the hell off. Rose looks at the console again, at the darkened runes and dead systems. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears. She had him, and now? She had nothing, except his voice echoing in her head. Argoz was taken days ago. She's already broken, Rose. And Lyra. Let's just say... I'm sure she had her reasons for screaming the way she did. Her fingers flex and her knuckles crack. Then, finally, she straightens. We need to get to Gunnar. Derren lifts a brow. Oh? So now you need my help? Rose scowls. You can walk or I can light your ass on fire and drag you there. Derren was not having it. No, Rose blinked. Excuse me? Nope. He crossed his arms over his chest, leaning casually against the stone pillar. Whatever batshit scheme you're cooking up, I want no part of it. Rose let out a slow breath, forcing a calm she absolutely did not feel. Derren. Rose. She squared her shoulders, then gave him her best fire-eyed glare, the one that made people reconsider their life choices. Derren was unimpressed. This is important, she said, voice even. I need someone watching my back, and frankly, you're the only one I trust for this. Derren made a show of looking around. Where's the part where I give a shit? Rose clenched her jaw. I have to go back to Concordia. Come on, we gotta tell Gunnar. Derren muttered. We are so gonna regret this. Gunnar looked like hell. When Rose and Derren stepped into his office, he was hunched over reports, his cybernetic fist resting against his temple, a deep frown etched across his face. Aeliana stood nearby, arms crossed, watching Gunnar with something between patience and concern. The moment he looked up at them, Rose immediately reconsidered her life choices. His expression was pure exhaustion. Derren sighed. Oh good, he's already pissed. That'll make this easier. Gunnar narrowed his eyes. If you're here, it means something's gone wrong. Rose hesitated for half a second, then launched into it. Draven knows I'm alive. Aeliana straightened, her piercing blue eyes sharpening. Explain. Rose gave them the short version. The failed hack. Draven's taunts. The fact that he shut her down completely. By the time she finished, Gunnar was rubbing his temples like he had an incoming migraine. Let me get this straight, he said slowly. You poked the bear laughed in your face, and now you want to go running straight into a bear den to fix it. Rose lifted a finger. Technically, Concordia is not a bear den. Gunnar levelled a look at her. Rose cleared her throat. Okay, fine. Maybe it is, but I have a plan. Derren held up a hand. Correction. She has a plan. I was dragged into this under protest. Gunnar crossed his arms, his gaze sharp. All right, someone explain before I lose my patience. Rose exhaled, shifting her weight. I need to go to Concordia. Aeliana, standing just behind Gunnar, frowned. Why? Rose hesitated. She never liked laying her cards on the table, but this wasn't something she could keep to herself anymore. Because I left something there. Something I need to get back. Eli, always the analyst, adjusted her glasses. Something Draven wants. Rose smirked. You're quick. Eli crossed her arms. That wasn't a compliment. Gunnar's expression hardened. Rose. His tone was the kind that cut through bullshit. What did you leave? Rose let out a breath and finally said it. The Flameheart Crystal. And a portal crystal from Eldermire. The room fell silent. Aeliana blinked, her lips parting slightly. You're joking. I don't joke about power like this. Eli's eyes narrowed. A Flameheart crystal? As in, one of the Flameheart crystals? And an Eldermire portal crystal? Rose nodded. Yeah. Gunnar clenched his jaw. You mean to tell me that one of the most powerful magical artifacts, an artifact that could give Draven everything he needs to take control of the realms, has been sitting in Concordia for the last 8 years? Rose crossed her arms. It was the best place to hide it. Derren ran a hand down his face. Oh yeah, because Concordia is so secure. Totally not full of backstabbers, power-hungry syndicates, and people who'd sell their own mother for a handful of gold. Rose grinned. Exactly. Too many people watching each other. Makes it hard for one person to take control of everything. Eli muttered. That is both the smartest and dumbest thing I've ever heard. Aeliana pinched the bridge of her nose. Where in Concordia? Rose hesitated. A place no one would look. A pocket dimension I created years ago, before I even met most of you. It's not connected to the main portal network. It's secure. Gunnar's fingers drummed against the table. And you think Draven doesn't know? He knows it's in Concordia, but he doesn't know where. Eli's mind was already racing. You're not just going back for the crystal, Rose smirked. Damn, you really are quick. Eli glared. Shut up and explain. Rose's smirk faded slightly. I can't just walk into Concordia and grab the thing. Draven has eyes everywhere. I need help. Gunnar's expression darkened. You want backup? No, Rose corrected. I need someone who won't set off every alarm in the damn city. Aeliana's eyes flickered with understanding. You need Derren. Derren, who had been happily staying out of the conversation, froze. Oh, hell no. Rose turned to him, smiling too sweetly. Come on, Derren. You and me? Concordia? Just like old times. We've never worked together in Concordia, Derren shot back. And you absolutely just tried to use that look on me. Rose's eyes widened in mock innocence. What look? Derren pointed at her. The one where you bat your big fiery eyes and pout like a sad little orphan girl, so I'll do what you want. Rose blinked dramatically. I have no idea what you're talking about. Derren turned to Gunnar. See? This is what she does. She pulls you in, makes you think it's your idea, and before you know it, you're getting shot at in some shady back alley while she smirks at you from a rooftop. Gunnar's eye twitched. I'm aware. Rose's grin widened. Derren groaned, rubbing his face. Number absolutely not. No way in hell. Rose pouted. Please? Derren clenched his jaw. Rose's smile turned smug. Derren cursed under his breath. I hate myself. Gunnar sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. You two better not make this worse. Rose slung an arm around Derren's shoulders. Oh, please. When have I ever made things worse? Derren glared. Do you really want me to start a list?